Tonight's we have a special presentation. And before I call up our guest tonight here, two things I want to do. And that is that we first, again, welcome to Columbus and the Ohio State University. We're glad that you are here. We hope your stay with us has been wonderful. Now, on to the rest of our program. As we shared with you last night, we have a story we've been trying to tell yesterday and today. We started with the Chancellor and Intel last night. We had a great legislative panel today here talking about what we're doing. And tonight, we're very fortunate to have three people here who can help finish the story about what we've done in Ohio, working together and working collaboratively to bring jobs to Ohio. And our three panelists tonight, and I'm going to introduce them briefly. First, we have Lydia Mihalik, who is the Director of the Ohio Department of Development. Prior to her appointment by Governor Mike DeWine in 2019, Director Mihalik served as the 55th mayor of the city of Findlay in Northwest Ohio. Director, you would like to join us up here? So, our second panelist is JP Nauseef, who is the director for JobsOhio. He is a U.S. Air Force veteran, entrepreneur, and the president and chief executive officer of JobsOhio. It's a uniquely structured private economic development corporation that gives Ohio a competitive advantage in driving job creation and new capital investment in the state. He leads a team of 9 targeted industry sector veterans, plus military and economic development specialists. They're all responsible for business government installation, retention, attraction, and expansion efforts statewide. JP Nauseef. Now, each of our panelists were asked to submit 2 lines for an introduction. This is what I got from Rick Carfagna. So our third panelist is a friend to all of us and well known. But I'm gonna tell you, I've known Rick for quite a while. He was a page and intern staffer when I was in the Ohio House. And you've done much better. You've done very well. So we're very fortunate that Rick has joined us tonight as a panelist, and he served the state of Ohio very well and MEC. So at this time, I'm going to turn this over for each of the panelists. We're going to start with Rick about what we're doing here in Ohio. All right, I feel like a game show host here. There you go.
Unless you're going to hand me the glass of wine, not the mic. No, thank you. Not yet. No, it's wonderful to be back with MEC. And I thank you all for having me back. The last 4 years being with MEC was wonderful and memorable, and just everybody has always been so incredibly gracious, from being a commissioner to being on the board of officers. Susan's been tremendous. President Eisler and just all the familiar faces in this room. Thank you, and welcome to Ohio once again. I hope that your stay has been wonderful and fruitful with all the discussion. So as you may be aware, I left the legislature 7 months ago to join the Ohio Chamber of Commerce as their senior vice president of government relations. And so the Ohio Chamber of Commerce has been around 129 years. They are kind of the flagship organization, advocacy organization for the business community in the state of Ohio. We have over 8,000 members, from the small mom and pops all the way up to Intel, to the Cleveland Clinic, to our largest employers here in the state. So we cover a very, very broad range, and it's been incredibly rewarding for me because I ran for office to work on the very economic issues that I'm working on right now in the Ohio Chamber, and that's workforce, infrastructure, energy, taxes, all of the things that I think matter to each and every Ohioan. I was asked to talk a little bit about, I think we're all going to kind of give some different perspective on, how we're trying to transform Ohio, from the Rust Belt to the Silicon Heartland, and, what that transition looks like and how kind of higher ed fits into that. And, and I would say that when we canvass our members at the Ohio Chamber, by and large, and if you talk to the other statewide business organizations, they'll agree, the number one challenge right now is workforce. But when we talk about workforce, it's really this vague, broad term. And at the Chamber, we believe that it's more than just job training, job credentialing, although we're going to talk about that this evening. I mean, for us, it's also It's access to childcare. It's access to workforce housing. It's having transportation options, because we have to get people to work. They have to live in the vicinity, and they need someone, frankly, to look after their children in a safe and hygienic manner. So, going into the next General Assembly, those are public policy areas that we as the chamber will be trying to drive home with elected leaders. But getting to job training, job credentialing, it starts at the top. And I have to commend our governor, Mike DeWine, our Lieutenant Governor, John Husted. I was very honored to be able to work during 2 budget cycles on the Finance Committee as the Higher Ed Subcommittee Chair one time. But to see the investment that our executive branch was willing to make across the board in all of the post-secondary options, because I think that that's something that maybe over the years has been lacking a little bit, but and not giving short shrift to any of them, but a realization that we need investment across the board. We have a lot of job openings right now that need short-term fixes. So if we can get somebody a short-term certificate, if we can get someone an associate's degree, and they can increase their marketability in short order, that fills the job need, and that enhances their marketability as an individual. And maybe it gets them off of Medicaid expansion, gets them off of Group 8, and they can provide for their families and be thriving, productive taxpayers. But look, we can't fool ourselves either. We need 4-year degrees. We can't lose sight of that either. We need to promote bachelor degrees. $36,000 in earning power over a high school diploma. Yes, Intel needs technicians, and Central Ohio Technical College, Columbus State, that can train our technicians are going to, but we need engineers. We need teachers. We need, all kinds of different occupations in the state. So I'm grateful to the administration. They have over the last 4 years really increased the investments in need-based tuition assistance in the state share of instruction, and all the different programs that feed our Ohio technical centers, or our community colleges, or our 4-year institutions, from short-term certificates all the way up to our med schools. I guess from the chamber's perspective, what we need in workforce, I would say, is we need a more technology proficient workforce. And that's something here in Ohio that we are going to work very hard and diligently on with not only the administration, but also with elected leaders. We have Intel coming. It's great news. It's going to be a few years until their fabs are constructed and up and running. But we need the workers there. There's 140 suppliers to Intel here in the state that need workers. We've had great wins as of late with the EV industry. Honda is going to be building a battery factory for the EV vehicles. Ford is making huge investments here in Ohio. Foxconn up in Northeast Ohio making great EV investments. But we need, again, a technologically proficient workforce. And it's not even so much for the tech companies. Yes, we have Meta and Google and Amazon that have made great investments here in the state, but Scotts Miracle-Gro, Procter & Gamble, Kroger, Crown Equipment. There are all of these maybe non-technical type large companies that need IT workers. They're warehousing voluminous amounts of data on customers. And, we need a workforce that can manage all of that. So one of the challenges we have here in the state is that only half of our public high schools offer a computer science class, which just blows my mind. And when I talk to a lot of, business owners and even elected leaders, they're gobsmacked. Like, because I have to explain to them, we're not talking about how to make a spreadsheet or how to use Microsoft Word. All the schools have computers and they teach kids how to use computers. We're talking about coding classes. We're talking about web design classes, app development, all of the more high-level things that are going to inspire innovation and creativity and prepare our kids in K-12 for the jobs that have yet to be invented that are going to be coming online in the next 7 to 10 years. So we have to get ready. As a state, there's been a lot of work done to look at computer science at the K-12 level. How do we get more professional development to have faculty members to teach the classes? How do we make sure that they have the technical wherewithal to offer these types of classes? But that's something that's coming, and we're going to be very bullish on as an Ohio chamber, because again, we need a technology proficient workforce. FAFSA, that's another challenge for us. I think we're at about 61%. Trying to look for Nick Dirksen. Are we at about 61%? Sound about right? Not to put you on the spot. Participation, but we're leaving $110 million on the table in federal student aid just by our high school students not filling out the FAFSA. And so we can talk about increasing financial aid and getting people, to go to community colleges, to go to four institutions, but if they're not even going to apply for federal aid, they don't even understand the opportunity that's available to them. And all too often, these are kids that are in first generation households that don't know what it means to have a college degree. So, we have to push that narrative as well. So lots of things going, but it's an exciting time. It's probably never been a greater time, frankly, to be in Ohio. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. We always want to be driving job attraction and advertising and marketing who we are in this global economy, but we need to prepare. The jobs are coming. I tell people, it's not even so much attracting jobs anymore. They're coming. They're here, and then we have to prepare. We have a window of opportunity to get ready and to make sure that we have a workforce, that we're growing them from within. Because otherwise there's only so many H-1B visas for technology workers that we can get federal level because they're capped. And when we do, and we're 33rd out of 50 states in the terms of computer science college graduates. So even when we do graduate them, they don't always stay in Ohio. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we've got a lot of leaders whose heads are in the right places. And I'm thrilled to be a part of it. And I'm thrilled to still be a part of MEC and to see you all here. So thank you.
Nice job, Rick. Okay, I'm going to try and cover just a few things that you didn't, but you did a really good job. Well, we all know about tech cred. So let me tell you a little story. First of all, it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to join all of you. You are thought leaders in this space and probably have a heck of a lot more experience in this than I do. So hopefully I have a chance to learn a little bit from you tonight. So thank you very much for the invitation. So first of all, let me take you back to 2019. This term Rust Belt, first of all, in Ohio, we buried this a long time ago. I had the chance to do a conference with a gentleman by the name, you know it now, John Fetterman. He was the lieutenant governor of the state of Pennsylvania. And the reason why I got to do it, it had to do with like the rising Rust Belt. And I think the only reason I got to do it was because the lieutenant governor of Ohio, John Husted, refused to go and talk about the term Rust Belt at a place in Pennsylvania. So it was, Lydia, here, you go do it. So I went to this conference and I said, look, in Ohio, we're not a Rust Belt state. We're a fasten your seatbelt state, right? And this was in 2019, and we were just getting started. And this was before the pandemic. We were definitely on the move, even at that point in time. And, little did we know we had this little thing happen in 2020 that kind of set us back a bit, but it offered us an opportunity, quite frankly, as a state to really analyze what we were doing from an economic development perspective. We've got a tremendous team, but in working with the General Assembly, the governor showed us some great leadership, and we got our fiscal house in order, which a lot of states, quite frankly, and I know we have a lot of states represented here, but you're wondering and wanting to know what has set Ohio apart. And we're very proud about this. And I know in times that before we've been pretty humble about this, but we got our fiscal house in order. And you say, well, Lydia, why is that so important? And it's important because it's allowed us to invest in our communities and in our people. And it's allowed us to create environments that are conducive for private capital. And people are starting to notice. And I'm going to let JP talk about this here in a minute, but let me give you some examples about how we've actually done that. First of all, we cut taxes, which is kind of a good thing. People like that. And we worked with the General Assembly to do that by more than $2.2 billion. Representative Cross, thank you very much for your assistance in that. So we've shown leadership in that fashion. And we cut our spending in the middle of a pandemic. While others were having to spend more and to worry about what they were going to do and to cut services in the middle of a public health crisis, Ohio was being smart and getting their house in order to be prepared for when things finally got better again. And that really, quite frankly, set us apart. I've spent the last better part of the last couple of months working with Kim Murnix and OBM and the rest of our team at the state of Ohio, talking to our bond rating agencies about why our bond rating should be increased. And for the first time in this history of the state of Ohio, our bond rating by Fitch has been increased to AAA, which is a really big deal. Pereira, you can have another drink, toast that Miller Lite or Bud Light. I can't remember, talk in your language, right? So our bond rating's the highest than it's ever been. We've got more money than in our treasury than we've had in a really long time. So Ohio's fiscal strength is very, very strong. And you say, well, Lydia, why is that important? Well, it allows us to invest in our communities, which we've been doing at a pretty good clip. Investing in our communities to make sure that we have sites ready for development. Investing in brownfield cleanup in some of our industrial sites in areas in our legacy cities across the state of Ohio. In areas where decades have gone by, where cities have not had a partner for community and economic development. But this administration, they get it. This governor wants every single corner of the state of Ohio to be able to take advantage of the growth and the excitement that's happening in this state. And we have the dollars to be able to do it because we've been smart about it. Brownfield development, infrastructure improvements across the state, high-speed internet, something that I know Rick feels very, very passionate about. We have about 200,000 more households to get connected because as we found out during the pandemic, being connected to the outside world is very important. Learning from home, working from home, being able to talk to your doctor from your kitchen table is so incredibly important. And for 300,000 households before the investment that we made just a few months ago, that wasn't even a possibility. But in Ohio, this governor and our lieutenant governor, working with the General Assembly, we want it to be a thing, and we're committed to making it happen. And it's not just the investments in our places, but as Rick was talking about, it's the investments in our people. And we've been doing it in job training. We've been doing it in mental health. We've been doing it across the board. And what's great about it, as of last week, we're going to get another 4 years at it. And I'm really excited about what the future of Ohio looks like because we've got a great guy in JP and the team at JobsOhio who do a phenomenal job of selling our state. We work really well at retention and expansion projects, and companies like Intel. I don't know if you heard about the $20 billion project that's going to happen here in Central Ohio, but that's just the beginning. So with that, I'll let JP back clean up and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. But thank you so much for your interest in Ohio.
Thanks, Director. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's really an exciting time to be in the Midwest. You know, all of you who represent the 13 universities that are part of the compact. If you're from the Midwest, you probably experienced similar things that we've experienced when you travel around. Well, why do you live in that state? You know, why don't you live in one of these cool places on the coasts? I know for people in Ohio, I've got family all over the country and had business interest all over the world. And I'd always hear, you know, is it Iowa? Where's Iowa? It's been an interesting phenomenon really for my whole lifetime. Moving here when I was still in middle school, we had forces driving our population west and south. Really after World War II, the Midwest and Ohio was the center of the industrial economy in the United States. And like many of your states, population started moving west and south. The air conditioner gets invented and scaled, and that accelerates the migration west and south. And NAFTA comes along and continues to take our manufacturing base south of the border to enjoy the benefits of lower labor costs. Then in the OOs and the teens, we saw offshoring take our tech industry and what was left of our manufacturing industry to Asia, again, in pursuit of lower costs. In about 2010, I would say that was a bottoming out of that experience. But that's really what framed the brand and I think the impression of the Midwest. Some were calling us a Rust Belt, flyover state, or really worse than all of that, just not even considering us in the discussion set. And so in that backdrop in 2010, Ohio was 49th out of 50 states in the growth of its resilient tradable industry sectors. We were a bottom 10 out of 50 states in our business climate. So competing for that additional capital investment was challenging. Then JobsOhio was formed. It's a unique economic development platform. I'm not sure how much you know about it, but it's unique for four primary reasons. It's private. That's helpful. It's not completely unique that it's private, but it's private. That allows our platform to negotiate with companies that we're trying to help expand here or to come here, to do it with confidence that we're not going to share their private information, their competitive information with their competitors or with the financial markets until they're ready to share it. So that provides us a bit of an advantage. The second attribute that makes JobsOhio a unique platform is our funding source. It's a unique funding source with Ohio as a control state. We control the distribution of spirituous liquors. So if you're drinking liquor tonight, thank you for contributing to economic development. We operate the distribution of liquor in Ohio, and we use the profits to fund economic development. Provides a steady, stable source of funds. And so private, a stable source of funds allows a flexibility and agility as the market changes and evolves. And through the fierce competition for this capital investment, we're able to have an advantage. The third attribute is the way we go into the marketplace. Ohio is a little bit different than most of the Midwestern states. Not better or worse, just different. Many of the Midwestern states are dominated by a large metropolitan area or one or two large industries. Ohio's got city states. We've got the 3 C's, big cities, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati. We've got smaller towns like Dayton, where I grew up, Toledo, where I hear Dave Portnoy is today. And then we have dozens of hallmark towns, small, livable, quaint communities and wide open spaces, of diversity of our communities. And we've got a resilient and a diverse industry base in our state. We're the 9th most diverse state from an economic perspective in the country. We're the most diverse state in the Midwest, and we're becoming more diverse at a faster rate than our really good friends on the coasts: California, Oregon, Washington, Virginia, New York. Lots of interesting advantages. But coming on the other side of COVID, what I believe our governor and our administration did an outstanding job working with our local governments and our legislature to really take it head on. You can disagree with some of the decisions, but you can't really argue with the courage and the boldness that our leadership, Governor DeWine and the DeWine administration, took it on. And that leadership, I think, was the beginning of putting us on the map. But what we also did during COVID was we, at the governor's encouragement, decided to be aggressive in how we marketed our state. We knew the flight from the coasts was occurring. People were leaving. Didn't start during COVID, but it sure accelerated as people on the coast, businesses on the coast, capital on the coasts were looking for a more affordable workforce, a more diverse workforce, a really more balanced way of life. And we wanted to make sure Ohio was in the conversation because, again, over the 40 or 50 years, flyover state, Rust Belt state, not really even looking at Ohio. So at the governor's encouragement, we invested. We also invested in 2020 because we believed reshoring would start to happen as we saw the exposure of our supply chains. So we aggressively marketed ourselves as a great location, a premier location for an open and secure supply chain. And as it turns out, coming out of 2020, businesses and people started to take notice. Intel's the most noticeable. They were the biggest. They had the biggest media event, so it got the most attention. But the year before Intel made its decision, in 2021, we, JobsOhio, working with the administration, the legislature, and our partners, supported the creation of more jobs, more payroll, more successful projects, and at the highest customer service level than any time in the history of the organization. So the momentum was occurring. So where does that leave us? Several of the projects were mentioned. If you take a tour around the state, it's not just Intel, although Intel's huge. It's a new sector. It's a strategically important sector for the United States and the Western world, quite frankly. And we're very happy it's centered here. It gives us a new opportunity to grow and build. It's wonderful. But as Rick mentioned, you can take a trip around the state, start in Youngstown, the 5th largest construction project in the country, through a joint venture between LG and GM, high-tech, high production manufacturing of EV batteries. Let's just jump over Cleveland and go to Toledo. General Motors made a huge investment. They're going to transition their internal combustion engines and start building electric motors right there in Toledo. Head on I-75 South toward Dayton and stop in Sydney. A Chinese company called Semcorp is going to create 1,200 new jobs and build a high-tech component for the EV battery supply chain. Head down to Dayton, Ohio, where the largest aircraft hangars in America are being built right now to perform maintenance, repair, and modification of military aircraft for the first time in the state of Ohio since Orville Wright was alive. Then come back in, of course, to Columbus, and we know the success with Intel, Amgen. It's wonderful because, again, over the last 50 years, we experienced somewhat of the opposite. So, this type of momentum is new to people like us. We've dreamed about it. We've hoped about it. We've worked hard for it. And now it's occurring. And we need to get used to it, not just in Ohio, but across the American Midwest, that we do provide that balance and that the diversity of workforce and the culture that I believe is the future of business. But it's going to be a great challenge now to have the right workers with the right skills, the right certifications, the right degrees for all of these companies and all these diverse sectors. So it's not just semiconductors, it's across the board. But frankly, I believe we're starting collectively from a position of strength. We graduate close to 175,000 students a year from Ohio universities, and close to half of those, not quite half, leave our state. Various reasons they leave. Job opportunities, one of the reasons they leave. So we're starting from a basis of strength. And I think the thing that's going to make us win, and the reason we're going to be successful going forward, not just in Ohio, but across the Midwest, is because we work together. We collaborate. I believe we're hungrier than our competition because we have gone without for long periods of time. So we know what it's like to do without, and we like the way it feels to be successful and to be growing. So we're starting from a position of strength. We have great leadership. We have a great legislature and cooperation with the legislature, and a unique platform for economic development called JobsOhio that helps provide those pieces an advantage. But the talent and workforce war is going to be the next big war, not just here in Ohio and the Midwest, but across the country and the West. And I believe we're going to win that war. And it's because we're going to work together and collaborate. So those are my remarks and comments. Happy to answer some questions.
Gary, they've got to have questions, or you've fed them enough of your wine out of your glass. You've worn them out.
Liquor enterprise is not beer and wine, so if you can have hard liquor, it's better for the responsibly, of course. Responsibly.
Where do public-private partnerships fall for federal law?
Oh, yeah.
Full available, chamber, JobsOhio.
Oh, wow. But yeah,
Well, you're
When I say public-private partnerships, more so philanthropic organizations partnering with governmental and non-governmental.
Well, not-for-profits is probably a closer fit, but even the philanthropic and charities, I know that we partner with those because they can have more flexibility with the type of I'd call it cost share and other leverageable investment that they can take in. But, JobsOhio is, by definition, it's a public-private partnership. Go ahead. Do you want to answer the question?
Yeah, sure. So the way I look at our workforce development strategy across the state of Ohio, everything is very regional in nature. It's not centralized here just and driven out of Columbus. And a lot of our industry sector partnerships, which is something that we focused on developing early on in the administration in 2019, are collaborations between nonprofits, philanthropic organizations, education, the private sector, governmental entities that are really focused on driving those training opportunities, et cetera. And I would say that between opportunities where collaborations can take place on the education side, the training side, social services side, I feel like anytime we can work together to be able to remove barriers that exist, because we all know that anybody that is on the bench right now that is there because a barrier exists, we need to figure out how to get them into the game. Because the workforce issue right now is as much of a numbers challenge for us as a state and in the Midwest, not just here in Ohio. And so there are a lot of challenges that people face. So anything that's limiting, and I think the governor said it really well the other day, anything that's limiting someone from reaching their God-given potential, we need to work together to try and resolve. And that's not something necessarily that us in government or us at JobsOhio are uniquely positioned to figure out on our own. And so our philanthropic partners, I think, play a really key role in that.
No, sure. I think in Ohio, what we do is a really good job of talking with each other across all the different layers of government and private enterprise and public partners. At the Ohio Chamber, we have 11 different policy committees. And we have, like I said, a broad spectrum of membership, but we have a lot of higher ed institutions that are our members. So, when we're leading a conversation about whatever public policy issue, and I've got a major insurance company here, I've got Huntington Bank over here, and then I have Ohio State weighing in. I mean, that's critical. That's important. I mean, because our institutions of higher ed, they are large economic drivers. They are large employers. They are, the economic fabric of our communities. And they are the largest driver of workforce still here in the state of Ohio. So, of course they need to be at the table, and it's important that we try to have alignment in all of these conversations. Again, I think the administration, all the way down, they've done a great job of soliciting the input of the private sector, asking, what are your needs? What kind of programs can we design at the getting the hook over here. It's like the Oscars and they're playing the music over here. No, but I think there's just a lot of good two-way conversation that is occurring throughout the state.
Thank you to our speakers, Lydia, JP, and Rick. Thanks very much for sharing this great success story about Ohio.